Welcome back to another episode of Better Than I Found It, the podcast all things college golf. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. My guest today on Better Than I Found It is longtime University of Texas golf coach John Fields. John is one of the giants in our profession. He has won 2 national championships, been the National Coach of the Year twice, has coached 2 world number 1 players that eventually became world number 1 in professional golf, has done an amazing amount for our profession, including a stint as the president of the Golf Coaches Association of America. John's just been a great friend of mine for a long time and a great competitor of mine for a long time. And I'm glad to finally able to bring him on Better Than I Found It. I hope you'll enjoy the listening. Okay, Better Than I Found It listeners, let's give a big shout out and welcome to University of Texas men's golf coach John Fields. John, thank you so much for joining me today on Better Than I Found It.
Thanks, Mike. I'm delighted to be here, and congratulations on what you've done with college golf and the mentorship you've had with other coaches. And I'm excited to be here today and maybe delve into collegiate golf today and in the past.
Yeah, obviously when people talk about collegiate golf, I mean, University of Texas is one of the schools that's mentioned, in the conversation about what are the top schools. You've been there, gosh, John, I think you've been there 25 years. Is that right?
That's correct. I'm in my 26th, and both Pearl and I count our blessings on a daily basis that the Lost Dodds thought well enough of me 26 years ago to hire me as the head men's golf coach at the University of Texas, one of 5 in a 95-year history.
Well, and it wasn't like you were just off the street. You were doing a really good job in New Mexico, so it's understandable why DeLoss would have done that. But if you think about it, at just that 25-year period, you were at New Mexico for 10 before that, but the 25-year period since you and I have both been in, I got in college coaching literally the same month as you were hired at Texas. So, I mean, because I saw you at the golf camp at Oklahoma State and you were at New Mexico, and like a week later, you were the golf coach at University of Texas. So I've been in college coaching as long as you've been at Texas, pretty much. But it's changed a lot, hasn't it?
Well, there's no question. I think the elevation of collegiate golf has been growing since the 50s, 40s. Now, you're the historian, so Yale has all those national championships to rest upon. And, of course, those were in the 40s. And then University of Houston came along late 50s, 60s, and 70s and really dominated. And then a young Mike Holder took over kind of mid 70-ish or maybe late 70s, and he took over there at Oklahoma State. He had his dominating run for essentially 20 years, and since then the elevation of collegiate golf has encompassed kind of a tremendous amount of growth, but also a lot more parity.
There's no doubt. There's so many more good teams now than there were 25 years ago when I first got in. When I first got in, you probably had 10 or 12 teams that probably had a realistic chance at competing for a national championship. And, I mean, it's a lot deeper than that now. And just the fact that schools are now putting a lot of money into facilities, which they weren't doing back then to speak of. And, I mean, you've seen the facilities change at the University of Texas. We could go down a list of about 50 or 60 schools that have markedly changed their facilities during that same time as well. But also, when you were walking fairways, when you first got to Texas, you didn't have to recruit it against as many schools as you have to recruit against now. It's changed. I mean, all across the board. It's a much, much more competitive situation.
It is. The core, and you and I have the commonality with Mike Holder in our lives. Myself, because when I took it New Mexico, I wanted to quickly try to elevate the program. And our good friend Cricket Mush had stepped out of coaching. He had been the head coach at the University of Texas, El Paso. And actually, I think it was 1989, he was the National Coach of the Year. And you can funnel down to his success. And again, it was Mike Holder who befriended him and gave him a tremendous amount of information, and he followed it to a T. And as a result, the University of Texas El Paso was one of the best teams in the nation. Showed up looking good, and really for me, that was more of a model for our New Mexico program than any other program. I mean, we couldn't aspire initially to what Oklahoma State had done at that time frame, but we could aspire to what Cricket Mush had done at the University of Texas El Paso. And I'm talking about in the mid to late 80s. And what he did is he aligned himself with Mike Holder, started walking around with him at recruiting sites. And you can imagine it's kind of like hanging around somebody who has tremendous success and not necessarily taking the leftovers, but taking the ones that don't quite measure up to that program. And then next thing you know, you've got this really dynamic program. That's what UTEP did. And I think we did something similar at New Mexico. I ended up doing Mike Holder's camp. I would encourage, like you do, Mike, young coaches to go to camps and learn how to teach, but also just to hang around maybe older successful coaches that might have some great ideas for younger guys. But the bottom line is there's 300 Division I programs right now or more, and I think about 100 of them are funded to win. And what I mean by that, they've got great tournaments, they've got great facilities, they travel properly in a nice way. But when you get right down to it, it all kind of emanated out of Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Well, and I was a big part of that program, obviously, and I grew up in the shadows of that program. So I saw college golf change from what Labor Harris was doing before Mike Holder, which was sort of meat and potatoes, if you will. It wasn't a big deal. They didn't travel very far. He didn't do much in recruiting because he just didn't have the funds to go recruit and travel. And I think Mike Holder told me a story about a gentleman named Bud Saratine, who was at the first Cowboy Pro-Am in 1973 when Mike was a brand new coach. And when Bud passed away years later, Mike got very emotional. And he told a story of how Bud was the first donor that reached out to him and said, "What do you need? What do you need to take this program to a completely different level?" He said, "Well, Bud, we don't travel. We just kind of play in and around Texas and Oklahoma. But I want to go to the coasts, East Coast once and West Coast once. We need to fly. And so it's going to cost a lot more money to do that." And Bud said, "You got it." And so Bud took care of him, I think for a 4 or 5 year period, took care of every flight they had. And Mike was able to now start traveling. Plus, he recruited outside, the Texas, Oklahoma region. So it's like that. I mean, that didn't happen beforehand. And
Right.
I mean, it really didn't. So it's kind of amazing how that evolved too, but it did start right there. One of the best programs for sure.
It did, and uniforms even were not utilized until the mid 60s. And I think Labor and Harris, probably Coach Williams at Houston, and I know George Hannon were at the crux of starting to wear uniforms. And then all of a sudden, Coach Williams down at Houston put the name of the school on the back of the shirts at the All-American, and everybody would proudly wear those. There's a picture of our Ben Crenshaw winning the 1972 national championship. He's got his back turned to the camera because he just made a 20-footer to tie Tom Kite. And on the back is Texas. And so teams would actually utilize a shirt that they picked up at the All-American and utilize that for the national championship. And that's something that Nike has done now, and that's something that our programs are more identifiable. And it's just been a wonderful moment in our history these last 10 years because the Golf Channel has now come on board. We're getting exposure at the grassroots level, which is junior golf. It has enhanced the American Junior Golf Association. It's enhanced high school programs across the board, whether it's Oklahoma, Texas, California, Florida, or all parts in between. Golf's at a really nice space. I was worried during COVID that it might be the death blow. And it has, again, the good Lord said, no, that's not the way it's going to be. I like this sport. So we've grown in a pandemic, which is amazing. And now our clubs all have waiting lists for people to get in. They've got kids they want in our programs. And what an exciting time to be involved with collegiate golf, junior golf, and just golf in general.
Absolutely. And, you and I could probably talk for 5 or 6 hours just about the history of how all this came about. But to suffice it to say, you've been doing this a long time. Is it 35 years?
I'm in my 36th year right now.
Yep. So that's a long time. Let's talk about sort of okay, we're going to talk a lot about Texas here in a minute, but you started in New Mexico, and University of New Mexico has a very interesting, deep recruiting tree, if you will, both as head coaches and assistant coaches. So let's just talk about that briefly. And you were right in the middle of that.
Well, I was. There was a guy named George Petrel. I think he had been a football coach, and he started the program at New Mexico. I'm going to say late 40s, early 50s. And then a gentleman named Dick McGuire, who was a high school coach, but was more like a minister, actually, to be quite honest with you. Was the coach there for 20 plus years. He was also the director of golf at the University of New Mexico. We had what was called the North Course, or the University Golf Course, on campus. And then he was at the crux of building a new facility called the Championship Golf Course at the University of New Mexico. It has now hosted the 1976, 92, and 98 NCAA championship. So golf was really important, and it was important to the state of New Mexico because you don't have the affluence, maybe the oil business or the tech business in a New Mexico. It's more government oriented, but they felt importantly that golf was a big part of the equation for students and staff at their university. So you have the Championship Golf Course at the University of New Mexico. You have New Mexico State University Golf Course. New Mexico Highlands has a golf course. Eastern New Mexico has a golf course. New Mexico Tech has a golf course. Things that nobody would know about. But that was just a decision made by the state for higher education to put that as part of the equation into their universities. And as a result, you have two really fine programs there, University of New Mexico and New Mexico State, that are Division I, and New Mexico's had tremendous success. New Mexico State had a nice run as well. And they're doing it again with Mike Dirks at the helm. But bottom line, it is a place where you might not think golf would be extensive, but it has been. And I was a part of that. And I followed Dwayne Knight, who had followed Dick McGuire. And then after me was JT Higgins for 4 years. And now Glenn Milliken for 21 years. So they don't have a whole lot of coaches either. There's been stability in the program. And I believe that's why there's been so much success.
Well, that's good to hear. And, there are assistant coaches too. Ryan Murphy is now the head women's coach at the University of Texas. Jim Anderson is the head coach on the men's side at University of Arizona. And Brian Corton is the coach at Texas A&M. So the assistant coaches have done well out of that too. But 4 national championships have come out of that program. Dwayne Knight won one at UNLV. JT Higgins won one at Texas A&M, and you've won 2 at Texas. So I'd say that coaching tree has been pretty successful, and nobody ever talks about it.
I agree with you. And I can tell you when JT Higgins won the national championship in 2009 with the Texas A&M Aggies, the following day we were doing an alumni pro-am, and we had finished either 25th or 26th there at Inverness. And we were doing our alumni pro-am the next day, and I won't say the player's name, but he did win major championships, and he played at Texas, and he basically saw me in one of the first people I saw that morning, which I knew was going to be a very difficult day because it wasn't an exciting moment for the Aggies to beat the Longhorns and no less win a national championship. And but he said, how in the heck do the Aggies win a national championship and we finished 26th? And my knees got kind of weak at that moment. And I thought that, we were trying to do everything we could. We were about to catch up, but the bottom line was JT Higgins had done a sensational job, put himself in position. And that was the beginning of match play. And that was really, if I can put it in a way, there was a crime committed there. And that was the fact that that's not saying that they didn't win that championship because they beat Arkansas in the final. But the way the NCAA had designed the Elite Eight, 1 through 8, it was based on your finish at the national championship. And I know you know this very well, Mike. Bottom line is Oklahoma State had what was arguably the best team that ever played college golf. I think Ricky Fowler was on that team. Go ahead and tell me who was on that team.
Ricky Fowler, Peter Uihlein, Morgan Hoffman, Kevin Tway, and let's see, we had I'm not thinking Trent Leon, who was the third team All-American.
Correct. And so they won the 54-hole medal by 20 shots, I think. And unfortunately, but fortunately for an A&M and an Arkansas, the number 2 team in the nation, which was arguably the second best team that ever played college golf at Georgia, finished 8th in the medal. And all of a sudden, you had the number 1 and 2 team going at it head to head in the first round of match play. And Georgia, darned if they didn't, were in a powerful position, which is everything to gain and nothing to lose. And they beat Oklahoma State. And then I think they kind of it was just one of those things where they spent so much energy in that place, they weren't able to match up with Arkansas. So next thing you know, Arkansas is playing what was then the number 16 ranked team in the country, Texas A&M, and A&M wins the national championship. That was a devastating day for me, but it really added fuel to our fire here at Texas, and it has been helpful, but it was a tough day.
Well, it was a tough day for me too, John. That wasn't
bad. Sorry to remind you of that, Mike.
No, but honestly, well before that, 2 years before that, I was preaching that we needed to keep the seeds that you came into the regional with and you came in the national championship with. And nobody's ever really agreed with me. I guess you sort of agree with me, but
oh no, I absolutely 100% agree with you, and I would love to do that. It's just, I guess they feel like in golf, like at the U.S. Amateur, how you finish in the medal is how you're going to be seeded. And I don't like that for college golf because I think we need to exemplify what the season and the entirety of the season means. And if you went back to the original seeds, it would be a much more healthy competition. I don't think that's ever going to happen because everything that we do at the national championship is to make it compelling for the viewer. And those type of stories, just like when we beat Oklahoma State at the Blessings 4 years ago in the semifinals, that was compelling. We should not have beat them, but we did. And that was a tough day for Alan Bratton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess you can look at it a lot of different ways, but regardless, we are both thankful that our national championship is on television now, and I think it's brought a lot of interest in the college game. So it's definitely helped our college game. There's no question about that.
I 100% agree. And this year I found out exactly how that happened. I'd always thought that Mike Holder was at the crux of getting that done, and he was. But the person that dreamt up the idea, the person that really brought it to the fore was Rick LaRose at Arizona. And when he got that in front of Holder, Holder bit off on it and thought it was great. And so he was in such a powerful position on the NCAA Championship Golf Committee that that he was able to get that through. And really the rest is history. And now the changes in collegiate golf have been immense. We've got more and more tournaments on TV. We've got more exposure for our players. It goes hand in hand with NIL, which is now a relevant part of our life, which is name, image, and likeness. And that the kids, even in golf, are able to retain a financial value to themselves, and now they're able to make money. And I'm excited for college golf. I'm excited for the coaches going forward. Those that work hard are going to do well, and those that don't are not.
I agree with that. So you and I are sort of doing a little history lesson here today, which is good. It's actually kind of fun for me because I am sort of a golf historian. But so let's talk about University of Texas golf. Obviously has been good for a long, long time. When Ben Crenshaw and Tom Kite were there, they won a couple of national championships. And then there were several years where they didn't win one and had several close calls under Jimmy Clayton, who was a really great coach there at Texas. But I'm gonna ask you this because I've always wanted to ask you this. I've never have, so I'm gonna do it here in a public forum. Jordan Spieth would be considered by most like a career changer. I mean, like just an unbelievable, and he is. He was that guy, and he changed your program greatly. But I would go back to 2 years earlier when Cody Gribble was a freshman, because I think Cody Gribble, in my opinion, was a big catalyst for the reason you were able to get Jordan Spieth to come to Texas, even though I think Jordan was always going to be a Texas kid. But talk to me about Cody and his impact on maybe encouraging Jordan to make a move to Texas. Did that have anything to do with it, do you think?
Well, there's no question. But you have to go actually back 2 more years to when we got Charlie Holland on the team, because Charlie had come from Dallas, Texas, Highland Park, had a tremendous spirit, dad that was very competitive as well, who's done great with Veritex Bank. But bottom line is that Charlie Holland worked really hard, became an All-American, was a semifinalist in the U.S. Amateur, and he was a quarterfinalist in the U.S. Amateur and an All-American. And he did it really a little bit. Well, he wasn't the athlete that today's players were, but he had an unbelievable spirit and an unbelievable short game and a tremendous desire for success, and always shared that. Charlie did a couple things. He helped, obviously, you can utilize your players to help on these official visits and that sort of thing. But Charlie helped us recruit Cody Gribble. And when we got Cody Gribble, and he came on the team, he was a 2-time state high school champion out of Highland Park, and basically he changed the entire dynamics on our team. He was a man's man. He was the greatest single recruiter that I've ever been around. If you think Pearl and I don't love Cody Gribble, you're wrong. We do. He really is at the center of our universe, and that is just simply a fact. I love Cody Gribble. I mean, he changed the dynamics. He came in with an unbelievable spirit, and he was a great recruiter. So if you look at our tree, you would say that Charlie Holland helped us get Cody Gribble. Cody Gribble helped us get Jordan Spieth. Dylan Fratelli was already on the team. But Jordan helped us get Bo Hostler and Gavin Hall. Those two helped us get Scotty Scheffler and Doug Gim. And those guys helped us get Cole Hammer, Pearson Coody, and Parker Coody. And those guys helped us get Mason Nome and Travis Vick. And so it has been an unbelievable kind of bright, burnt orange, burning bonfire of recruiting for us. And the reason is, and the core of that burning bonfire is Cody Gribble and Charlie Hall.
Well, right. I hadn't thought about Charlie as much as Cody, but you're right. I think you're right. That was where it really started. And, it wasn't always that way. You were in a little bit of a sort of not a drought, but it wasn't as good for a few years for you before that. And so
Yeah,
I,
no,
I
that happened, Mike, because I came in with tremendous enthusiasm. And if you remember, we recruited in 1997, 98, we recruited what was called the Fab Five. It was David Gossett, number one junior in America, um, John Cloud, number two junior in America, the number seven junior in America, or maybe number nine, was Russell Serber. And then Matt Brose was like 11 or 12, and Cully Berrigan was like 19th or 20th. And Golf Week actually called it the Fab Five. And we rode on that. We finished third, fourth, and fifth in the national championship. That team and what emanated out of that team was a United States Amateur Championship, which was David Gossett. And then in 2002, 3, and 4, we won our first Big 12 championships. We called it the three-peat. And then we got into the build of the golf course, and I got distracted. I was looking at more where a bunker ought to be, or where a tee box ought to be, or the length of our golf course, or how a fairway should be shaped. I got distracted, and that hurt us in the 2005, 6, 7, 8, and 9 time frame. And truthfully, I think the good Lord sent us an angel, and that was Cody Gribble, because it absolutely changed the dynamics of our program at that time. And all of a sudden, we were relevant and could win, and it has been burning bright since then.
So, okay, there's a little bit of history for people right there about how it got to there. But let's talk about Jordan Spieth, because when Cody was there, you guys had a building team. You were getting better, but there wasn't the same energy as when that kid got on campus. And I think it speaks to, one, incredible talent, but two, anticipation of that talent showing up on campus. But three, Jordan's just a very dynamic guy. I'm really, really, obviously I was in the recruiting of Jordan Spieth as well, big time. I'll never forget the day when Jordan called me to tell me he was going to the University of Texas. He said, "Coach, I just want you to know, you did a great job recruiting me." I said, "Well, thanks, Jordan, but second place in recruiting doesn't get you very far." He goes, "Well, no, but I just want you to know, I was always going to be a Texas Longhorn. And I got to the point where I decided to bring my whole family on that official visit." So he brought his entire family to Stillwater. He said, "I never would have done that. You made it hard for me to say no, and that was a great job. But I was probably always going to be a Longhorn." So I obviously am licking my wounds on that one, but I still have so much respect for that guy, and just the way he's carried himself in pro golf has been amazing.
Yeah, I would say he's got one thing that there are a few golfers in this world, a few golfers in history have had. If you ask me what Jordan Spieth was to our career, I would say he's probably a once in 50-year player. I would say Phil Mickelson, who was around when you were too, was a once in 75-year player, and Tiger Woods is a once in a lifetime player. And Jordan Spieth has a commonality with both those guys, and I've termed it as delusional confidence. There's nothing that he cannot dream up that he does not believe that he can accomplish. Meaning, he immediately thought that we could win a national championship, and we did. One of the things that he told me when he was going to turn pro, and it was December of his third semester at Texas, I asked him, I wanted him to know that I didn't want him to leave, but I knew it was the right time for him to leave. In other words, I told him, "Look, we love you. I don't want you to ever think that I want you to leave, but I know it's the right time." And I said, "But you need to there's a couple things I need for you to do." And I said, "One of them, Jordan, is Pearl and I, when you play in the Ryder Cup someday, we want to be with you. We want to watch that tournament, and we want to go out there and enjoy that with you." And he said, "Coach, that's no problem." Now, this guy had just missed in the second stage of the tour school. So I'm talking to him as he's going to go out and have to Monday qualify and do some things for the PGA Tour. But it's December, and he said, "Coach, that's no problem. I'm going to be at the Belfry in 2 years, and you will be with me. You and Pearl will be with me." And we were. And then he goes on to win two major championships, the Masters first and then the US Open. And at that moment, I don't think anybody knew that it had occurred to Jordan that he just might win, not might, could win the Grand Slam of golf. And if you remember back, he almost he won the Masters, he won the US Open, he had a top 5 finish in the British and was relevant all the way to the last couple of holes of the PGA. He almost did it. And that's okay with Jordan. He believes that he could do that, and that's okay. It's not a problem. It's not without reality. And so I've sat with him since. I know he believes he's going to win more major championships. He told me one day, just sitting on his couch in his house, he said, Coach, you know what? You can just do the math. I'm 20 something when we had this conversation. He said, think about how many major championships I'm going to play in the next 30 years. I'm going to win several of those, Coach. And that's what he believes. And I love being around him. He was great for us with match play. And like I said, he's the one that helped us bring Scotty Scheffler too. So, and I will tell you this, going back to Charlie Holland, after we got Cody and we knew we were going to get Jordan Spieth, or at least we were recruiting him really hard, I asked Charlie Holland, as a Dallas boy, I said, hey, Charlie, who's going to be the next great player out of Dallas? He said, Coach, no question about it. Not even a guess, he said. It's going to be Scotty Scheffler. And I said, really? I mean, that guy's like 12 years old. And he goes, I'm telling you, Coach, he is going to be great. I'm like, okay. And I don't know if there was a bright light shining around him or what it was, but he was absolutely 100% right. And in my mind, thank God he came to Texas.
Yeah, I mean, so we just talked about a world number one, Jordan Spieth, and Scotty now world number one. I don't know if it's true because I'm a golf historian. Not sure if I have this perfect, but I think you're the only NCAA Division I coach to have coached two future world number ones. I don't think anybody else has done it. I mean, the odds of that happening are way astronomical. So congratulations on that. And it's been fun watching Scotty because he's such a good dude also, get to the top of the golf world. He's done it in a beautiful way too.
Yeah, I would thoroughly agree with you, Mike. I would say that they're both powerfully great human beings, and that is Scotty Scheffler and Jordan Spieth. They are, if you can imagine, they're both better people than they are golfers.
Well, I would think you'd probably know better than anyone. I mean, you were around them every day for the time they were in college, which was pretty amazing. But have you talked to Scotty here any recently?
Oh yeah, we had him in for our alumni pro-am in early September, and we were fortunate. Jordan wasn't able to make game day, and unbelievably, the people with game day, ESPN, reached out to us. We happened to have our national championship team there, and they asked if we'd go on stage with him. I asked Cole Hammer, Pearson Coody, Parker Coody, Travis Vick, and Mason Nome if they wanted to do it, even though it was just going to be a cameo, and they all wanted to do it. So when we got there, the director, a woman who was a director of ESPN Game Day, said, "Hey, Coach, here's what we want you to do. You brought your national championship trophy. Go ahead and bring that up on stage. We are going to highlight the Director's Cup, but we've got another trophy with us, Coach." And I'm like, "Oh, really? What is that?" And she said, "Well, Scotty doesn't know it, but he won Player of the Year on the PGA Tour. His peers elected him 2 days ago, and we have the trophy, and we want you to give it to him." And I'm like, "Oh, come on, you got to be kidding." And she said, "No, this is a reality. We're going to have it behind you. It's going to have a shroud draping it, and we're going to take it off and give it to him." And that's what happened. And I was able to hand it to him. Scotty teared up. He had no idea that was going to happen. And it was a real live moment. It tells you right about him, how emotional he is, how much that meant to him. And for us, it was just another one of those blessings that might not ever happen again, probably will never happen again. And not in that fashion where we were going to play Alabama that day. Scotty Scheffler's #1 in the world, player of the year on the PGA Tour, standing with a national championship team at Texas. I mean, that is a crescendo in a career.
That's pretty good. You could stop right now, and that'd be a pretty good finish to your career. But I don't think you're going to stop. Something tells me. All
Not right
right,
now.
so um, I do want to talk about your national championship team from this year because I was I'd say close. I pretty good acquaintances with Cole and Pearson and Parker, and recruited Travis heavily. And
Mm-hmm.
Mason Nome, I've known since he was about a 12-year-old. So it's a great group of Texas kids, really pretty impressive. I don't know if that will happen like that again. I don't know how many teams are going to have five. For 6 straight years, my postseason team at Baylor was all Texas kids, every one of them. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a rarity. But you guys actually won the national championship with that group. So what kind of pride do you take in that?
Absolutely. I mean, it was just another one of those blessings. I mean, that those guys would all come from Texas and that they would all be at that high value with regards to the ability to win a national championship. They were like brothers. They all grew up together. They, even though 2 were from Dallas and 3 were from Houston, and they'd all done ridiculously special things in the amateur world and even played professional golf as an amateur. And it was just one of those moments in history that, again, probably won't ever happen again. In 1971, all 5 players on our national championship team, the first one at University of Texas, they were all from Austin, Texas. That's even more defined. But this is just unusual. And, we're all looking all over the world these days to find the best players. It's a world game. And, we've got Chris Moss on our team right now that is the #1 junior, #1 amateur out of South Africa. Great young man, following the footsteps of Brandon Stone and Dylan Fratelli, who played for us. And it's just wild because the national championship team that won in 2012 for us, we did have 2 Dallas guys, which was Cody Gribble and Jordan Spieth, but we had Dylan Fratelli from South Africa, Tony Hakula from Finland, and then Julio Vegas from Venezuela. So you never know how it's going to happen. I'm a believer just like you are, Mike, and I believe that things happen for a reason. I believe that we're here to help educate these kids and give them opportunities. And if a byproduct is a national championship, I know which you're a part of one as well, or 2 actually, with Alabama. And I know you had a lot to do with that. But the bottom line is we get to help educate these kids, and then we get to enjoy them for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I always tell them that when they say, "Do you keep in touch with former players?" And I'll just show them my cell phone, and it's like all the former players I've coached are in that cell phone. And I'm pretty excited that I think if I send a text to a player that they're not going to moan and groan like, "Oh my gosh, Coach McGraw is texting me." It's like that's a relationship that we started in recruiting and we've kept it throughout. And I can't wait to hear about their children or what's happening in their lives. I mean, that's one of the great joys we have as a coach, and I think is way underrated. I mean, John, how many times have you coached? You've coached 36, 35 years, correct?
Yes.
If the benchmark was to win a national championship and that's all that was acceptable, then you've been a failure 33 years. And
Right.
I can't accept that. I can't.
No. The joy that we have, starting with the kids that we're recruiting right now. I mean, it's just wonderful to be around the guys that play golf, the parents that get their kids the opportunities, all the different things that are happening in the collegiate golf world. It's a joy. It really is, and it's expanding and getting better. And you're right, Mike. I'm very appreciative that we've won 2 national championships, but it truly is not about that. It's more about the individual, and it's more about their success.
I agree. I totally agree. I couldn't agree more, actually. So, um, we've obviously we've mentioned two of your best players you've ever coached, but you've coached a bunch of other
Oh, yeah.
world number one amateurs, U.S. amateur champions. I mean, you've had a great run here at Texas. How much longer are you going to coach, John? Tell me. I want the definitive right here on Better Than I Found It.
I'm 63 years old. I'm in the second year of a 5-year contract. I'm not going to look beyond that, but I am healthy and happy. Pearl's healthy and happy. And as you know, Pearl and I have been married 42 years, and she's been a big part of our program. She's enjoyed our world and been great with the parents, been great with the team. She was an athlete in high school and college, and she gets it. And we've just had a very nice run. You know, we're not the richest people in the world, but we're pretty darn happy. And so what I'm telling you is that there is a next for me. We're going to host the national championship at La Costa in 24, 25, and 26. And that's next. And then there'll be more after that with regards to that tournament. I want to try to keep my footprint in collegiate golf no matter what happens. And part of that is going to be the continued build of the national championship, because I think we've got something special and I want to be part of that. I think you need to be part of that as we go along. And there's a lot of older, great coaches that I'm going to try to pull in and create kind of some synergy there to really build that tournament into something special, and maybe have 10,000 people watching that someday, both men's and women's.
I think it'd be great. I'm thrilled at where it's gone, or how it's gone, where it's evolved to, and it's been fun to watch. I'm hoping to, have my team at Greyhawk with you guys this spring. I mean, we're both hoping that. And then I've got a freshman on the team whose home course is La Costa. He grew up there, so we're hoping to take him back there 3 years. That would be nice.
Absolutely.
So college golf has evolved and changed, and part of that is the conference realignment. So it's like not a secret to anybody, but the University of Texas and the University of Oklahoma are both going to be moving to the Southeastern Conference. So talk to me about that for you, what that means. I don't think it means a lot of difference in our regular season events at all. I think you'll play where you're going to play, but it does change where you'll play the conference championship.
Right. It doesn't really affect collegiate golf as much because we play all over. We play a national schedule anyway. It does affect our conference championship. We're going to go into the SEC. They have a match play component to their national championship. I happen to believe the Big 12 has it right. It is singularly the best conference championship in America. 4 count 5, which is what we normally do. That's our scoring. Medal play, 72 holes, identifying most likely the best team in the tournament and most likely the best team in the Big 12. I think that's great because there's only one way to get to the national championship, meaning you cannot qualify for the Elite Eight if you can't get through the 72 holes. And there's only one other time that we do that, and that is the Big 12 Conference Championship. That's why I believe the Big 12 has been so good over the last 15 years and truly has dominated not only in the rankings, but also at the national championship. And you've been a part of an Elite Eight. I know you did it in Chicago. Bottom line, there's no conference that can measure up to the Big 12. And the SEC is loaded. They've got great teams. But I don't think that is necessarily as healthy. They want their conference championship to be on TV and make it compelling. And they have done that. But the Big 12 is going to be on TV. So let's see what happens this year.
Well, I agree with you there. And, it's the one thing you didn't mention, which I know you agree with, is 3 great championship golf courses: Whispering Pines down in Trinity, Texas, Southern Hills in Tulsa, and Prairie Dunes in Hutchinson, Kansas. We not only get to play that great championship of 72 holes, but we play it on 3 great golf courses. So I agree with you. The Big 12 Conference has done an amazing job. The SEC has been awesome too. They've been great as well, but I think we've had a great run in the Big 12. So hate to see you go, John, but I guess you're going to.
No, I just needed to move around for just a minute. But
No,
I'm doing good.
I hate to see you go to the
Oh,
Southeastern Conference.
exactly. No, you know what? I mean, it's just a function of money. But I'm excited to see what's happening with the Big 12, the teams that they've added, and we're going to get to see them at the Big 12 Match Play Fall Tournament next year. So whether it's BYU or Houston or Cincinnati or Central Florida, I think it's going to be healthy. I think you guys got a great new administrator or executive director of the Big 12. He's fighting the fight right now. And I think the Big 12 is not only going to survive, but it's going to thrive. And I think, nobody has a magic wand and nobody really knows where history is going to land. But I would say in the next 15 years, the Big 12 could make a huge statement. And all the teams, including Baylor, I mean, your football teams, your basketball teams, your athletic department is 100% dynamic. And as a result, kids are getting opportunities, coaches are getting opportunities, and the school is super proud of what they've done. I mean, y'all won a national championship in basketball recently, both men's and women's. I mean, you guys are part of success. Big 12 is going to survive. It's going to be really good.
I agree with you. Going to be great. Well, I've got one more question, John, and
Yeah.
this is one I've been wanting to ask you for a while because you and I are basically the same age, and we've both had mentors and we both mentored. But I have a question for you. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received from another coach? Describe that to me.
Yeah. Again, it revolves around Mike Holder, but in 1989, I had been hired in 1987. And in 89, we went and put a bid down for the national championship. We wanted to host it at the championship golf course at the University of New Mexico. And that was when we put the bid down, they had just shifted gears to uh, a qualifying format where you would have regionals to qualify for the national championship. So at that time, there would be three regionals, one in the West, one in the Central, and one in the East. Well, we got the national championship in 1992, and I had a really nice team with Tim Herron and Brian Corton and a guy named Jason Pena and a couple others. And I had a really nice team. It was a top 20 team. Uh, but the West Coast was loaded, and I was really worried about qualifying for that 92 NCAAs because we poured over $500,000 into the clubhouse and building a pavilion and all kinds of different things to get ready for the national championship. But lo and behold, we had to go to Tucson National to try to qualify. And at that time, 9 teams advanced from the West, 10 teams advanced from the Central, and 11 teams advanced from the East. And that was just based on the number of teams in each area. Well, on the West Coast, there was 18 teams in the tournament, and 10 of them were in the top 20. So I was particularly worried that we might not get out, even though I had a really good team. So I was belly aching about it, and Mike Holder heard me belly aching about it, and he told me, he said, Johnny, they're not going to change that rule for you. They're not going to invite you to play in that tournament. You're going to have to go down there and you're going to earn it. Your guys are going to have to earn it. And I was thinking at the time, I'm a Class A PGA pro. I was kind of thinking in terms of how the PGA Tour was and how it was in the early 70s and 60s, where if they hosted the Phoenix Open at Phoenix Country Club, they would invite the head pro at Phoenix Country Club as a sponsor's exemption in the tournament, just so he could play in front of his members on a tour event. But I was hoping that the NCAA might do that for the host. Holder told me that was not going to happen. And he gave me probably the best advice I ever got as a coach. And that was that he said, Johnny, your team's going to feed off of you. So if you're going to behave like you're behaving right now and you are worried about advancing to the national championship and you feel like you might not get it done, you're exactly right. You're going to go down there and that's exactly what's going to happen. He said, but I will tell you this, if you go down there and you make it your business to have a lot of fun, if you make it your business to treat your guys right, have great dinners, maybe go to a movie, get them relaxed, and you go down there and you just enjoy yourself as much as you can, in Tucson at the Omni Tucson National. He said, "You go down there and do that, and I have a good feeling. I think you'll get through." That's exactly what I did. And my team played really as good as we could possibly play. I think we finished fifth. And one of the team, well, Arizona State had Phil Mickelson. Arizona had what was going to then be the national championship team with Harry Rudolph and Manny Zerman and David Bergano and Rob MacGyver. I mean, they were, and a certain guy named Jim Furyk that won the national championship that year. But the bottom line was my guys played great. And I owe that to Mike Holder, but it left an indelible mark on me. And that was my team was going to feed off me. And the way I behaved at tournaments gave them the opportunity to either success or fail. And it was my choice at that point. So that was singularly the best advice I ever got. I'm always appreciative of that. And he was, Mike Holder's been a blessing for a lot of people, and I'm one of them.
Well, and obviously I am. That's a great story. I had never heard that before. And, he talked to me about that on numerous occasions. Our guys are feeding off of what we are. So you better get your stuff together there and settle down, Mike, because, they're going to, if I look nervous and feel nervous and act nervous, they are as well. And more, it's nervous enough anyway, because it's a big event, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So don't make it
the
worse.
Stakes are high.
The stakes are high. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because that's advice coming from somebody you competed tooth and nail with for a long, long time. And I know there were some tough recruiting battles in there and tough tournament losses and wins either way. So it's great to hear that one coach can help another. And you know what? I think it's incumbent upon us as coaches to give back to the sport, help each other out. It's not like just because he gave you that advice, which was good advice and helpful, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, now John's got an up on me. I can't beat him now, but that's not it at all. We're growing our profession. So we should all do that.
I would absolutely agree. And that's intrinsic to our sport, the great game of golf. And we're all blessed to be a part of it. And the collegiate golf world just gets better. I love it. I'm appreciative of it. I appreciate guys like you, Mike, and all the guys and great coaches that we get to play against, and the players and great courses. Unbelievable time to be part of college golf.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, listen, John, this has been it's been a really fun, walk down memory lane for me to hear all these stories from you. And you are truly one of the greats in our profession. Appreciate everything you do. And I love competing against you. I hope you and I both get to coach several more years, but I guess we'll know when the time is right. Isn't that right? That's correct. And God bless you guys up there at Baylor. I'm appreciative. I love the Big 12. I love the coaches and the players, and beyond that, it's been a fun run. All right. Well, you and Pearl have a great Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we'll see you sometime in the spring, maybe at Cabo. Will do.